So I found out some amazing stuff today through my search of the cosmic foam. I had an insight that the alveoli in the human lungs must match the shape of the cosmic foam if they are to be any use in terms of energy transfer. And if you think about breathing as being, you're getting energy. You gain energy from the atmosphere that your body needs. And so therefore the mechanism of energy transfer must be efficient, so that if the energy is in spheres in the cosmic foam, then the cosmic foam, which it recreates itself as matter, as human beings, for example, in our lungs, the alveoli are little bunches of grapes, little circles. And inside there is atmosphere. So when we change pressure, when we breathe, what happens is that there's a liquid lining around the visceral pleura of the lungs. The visceral pleura creates the inner lining, and then there's another lining on the outside of it around the lungs. Inside that is a pleural fluid, which is created by the body. Inside that pleural fluid, there is negative pressure compared to the atmospheric pressure. So there's a pressure difference. As we breathe in, it changes that pressure difference, and what happens is the surface tension in that fluid around the lungs changes. And how it changes is that the spheres of energy, of oxygen, inside the alveoli expand, and in expanding they turn inside out. So they don't expand. The pressure that should expand them actually just turns the shell inside out, allowing the energy to be transformed for us to use it. It's the same in plants with photosynthesis. If you look at the way that they work, it's about inverting the light in the atmosphere, inverting the CO2 shells in the other way around to create energy in the water, and it creates matter, it creates the growth. So the energy extraction mechanism in plants and in ourselves is similar. Ours is much more complex because of the cellular nature of the fluid that we've created, so that the inversion of the energy goes directly to the surface tension in our lungs, or surrounding our lungs, and that's how the energy is then extracted from the light in the atmosphere and from the oxygen in the atmosphere. It's the light that causes the expansive force, light expanding, and that is expressed in the oxygen. We see it as and name it as oxygen, and that inverts, and so we get a layer of matter in the negative tension of the cosmic foam is adjusted and increased again, so that you have a balance between elasticity, expanding universe, restrained by the plasticity of the inverted spaces in between their cells, which expresses itself as matter and as life. Because in the inversion, there is a moment where time is created. If you have a surface that must turn completely inside out in one rotation, it must go through a moment where it's all aperture. It must go through an aperture to turn inside out, and so it's all aperture for that moment. And that is the duration of time that creates the rest of the space for this to take place in. But we experience that shift inside ourselves because we have the time, we have a perspective on what's actually happening from the perspective of that not existing sphere. It exists, it turns inside out in that motion. For a moment it doesn't exist. All that exists is the time that it takes for that inversion to exist, and then the inversion is completed. So there is a moment of pure time created where nothing else matters, and that's where consciousness is created from. So that's exciting stuff. You can solve all these. I've come up with a theory that links photosynthesis and breathing and ties it into shell theory and links it back to Dr. Victor Levy 1915 again, proving this. Finally, Euler's rigid body axis theorem says that any infinitesimal change on the outside of a rigid body creates one rotation at the center. That's not true. there's a complication because we're not seeing the twist of the inside-out turn in the way that it's dealt with by Euler, in Euler's identity. So you're adding in the I, E equals I pi, the I that is created in there is that the centre is imaginary. What happens at the centre is, it's M4. A meter 4, a bending moment is created at the centre, and that's the axis for the rotation of the bending of the inside-out motion. So the single rotation, if you disturb the surface of a rigid body, it is the surface that goes through one rotation, not about the centre. And the reason that it goes through one rotation is that that's the mechanism of momentum of time. Everything is rotating. You're just proving it. That's what Euler's proved. And Levy adds the icing on the cake and shows us the way into understanding reality. Did I mention it in 1915? Check him out. Ace Consultancy, at your service.